Hey everybody, welcome back into the Parker and the Man page at yournews.com. Right there, Mark Wilson with your webcam to start the final week of September. And this is kind of a fun one you'll be reading today because I've waited all season long to do kind of a retrospective on the Detroit Tigers' 1984 World Series run. I was working at the time in Miami. Well, we kind of adopted the Tigers that year because if you recall, down in Miami, the Florida Marlins didn't come into play until the 90s. So pretty much because of the transplanted Northerners, mostly from New York, that we used to think inhabited the greater South Florida area, the Yankees and the Mets seemed to dominate everything. But you had a couple of Detroit guys working in the sports office back then, so we said, let's cover the Tigers. Now, understand this about the 1984 season, and you can read about this in my column. Spring training 1984 in Lakeland, Florida, was awful. The Tigers looked terrible, especially towards the end. Couldn't do anything right. No pitching, no fielding, no hitting, no nothing. Sparky had commented at the time that he thought the team wasn't ready. He said, I'm taking 25 guys up north, but I don't know who's going to play. Somebody will because it's our contracts. It was one of those things from Sparky at the time. And, who knew? Who knew that 35-5 was going to happen? But just every night as that season started, they kept winning games and scoring early and getting the great pitching out of Morris and Wilcox and Petrie and Juan Berenguer. Morris had that no-hitter in the first week of the season in Chicago against the White Sox, April 7th on national television, getting Ron Kittle to strike out for the final out. There was a lot of big highlights, obviously. The wire-to-wire, the 104 wins, the easy playoff win over Kansas City, over the Royals, and then beating the Padres in the World Series with Gibby doing the thing, after the 2 home runs and the home run off Gossage. And there's so many indelible marks. The Bless You Boys from Al Ackerman at Channel 4. The turned over car, which became a symbol. The car on fire, which of course was a horrible way to symbolize the World Series. It was one picture, one moment, one incident with the guy with the pennant. But of course, that's how Detroit's been looked at forever anyhow. We get used to it here, don't we? But anyhow, you could take a little walk back because of course they were all back at Comerica Park on Monday night, even though the rains hit and the wind and forced the cancellation of the actual big moment for the Tigers, which is this 4-game series against Minnesota, which will resume with a day-night doubleheader on Tuesday today. But 24 guys were back. Sparky was there, and Roger Craig at near the age of 80. Sparky now 75. Gibby and Tram came in from their respective teams. Jack Morris was here. Dan Petrie. All those guys. Most of the guys. Darrell Evans now at age 62. I wish Lou Whitaker would get more into this. Sweet Lou. I used to get along great with Sweet Lou, still do. A lot of guys didn't, and Whitaker is just kind of nonchalant when it comes to these little moments, these reunions and things like that, just not in his makeup, not in his nature. But it certainly is for Tram and for Gibby and the rest of those guys. They hold 1984 very dear and near to their vests. So read all about that. Little trip down the old memory lane. Memory lane. My memories of 1984, the parade to Kennedy Square and everything that came with the winning the World Series. Only the second World Series for the Tigers since 1968. And remember, they've only won a division once since, and that was 1987. This 2009 team would be just the second to do that since 1984. So read about that and the 4-game series now that starts after the rain and wind, although who knows with the weather, the way it's supposed to be this week. Crazy weather this week, this final week of September. Pistons Media Day yesterday at the Palace of Auburn Hills at the practice facility. John Houston, the new coach, seeing all those new guys. Well, everybody's new to him, even though he was here in 04 with Larry Brown. But Charlie Villanueva and Ben Gordon, Ben Wallace being back, Chucky Atkins is here, former Michigan Wolverine Maceo Baston is in camp. So some interest is Rodney Stuckey now in his first full year as the point guard of the Pistons. And, Will Bynum after the great, I shouldn't say great, very good end of season that he had for Detroit. I will have a lot of pieces coming up on the various guys. Some interesting stuff with Villanueva on the Twitter incident in Milwaukee last season, where the NBA has actually responded, calling it the Charlie rule, the Charlie V rule, on Twittering during games. So a lot of interesting, really fun stories with the Pistons, as it turns out, to begin this 2009-2010 campaign. The practice will begin now for the Pistons following Monday's media day. And, it was fun to see what's cooking there, because Joe D is starting to form something new with the Pistons. Football news, Chad Henne is in for Miami. Chad Pennington looks like he's out for the season. He's expected to go on injured reserve with a torn throwing shoulder. So Chad Henne becomes the latest in a long line now of Michigan quarterbacks to make at least a start in the NFL. Look at all the guys that have done it. I can't even list them all. Since Jim Harbaugh, Brian Griese and obviously Elvis Gerback and, just tons of guys. I mean, I'm not going to do them justice because I'm forgetting the other guys I should be mentioning. Who am I forgetting? Oh, John Navarre, he started, and plenty others. And I'm forgetting a ton. But Chad Henne for the Miami Dolphins, winless Miami Dolphins, should get his first start this Sunday against Buffalo. And the Red Wings are in Sweden now. They're 3-5 in the exhibitions. They have one more preseason game, and that is with, I'm going to get this wrong, Nick Lidstrom, Farstad. That is Farstad. And then they play the 2 games against the St. Louis Blues in Stockholm to open up the NHL campaign this weekend. So you go. The Wings are in Sweden. Now there's 12 Red Wings from Sweden that are on the extended roster. Somebody has to make sure that they get on a plane and come back here. And if you read about my column, that's a good reason how they can do that, a little incentive to get them to come back. Has something to do with Sweden and furniture in Metro Detroit. I think you know it now. So there you go. It's all there for you. The reunion from Monday, fun stuff. I always like the reunion stuff. I think it's great to honor those teams that have done great, that have won championships. Tigers 1984. Bless you, boys, and all that. The 4-game series that starts now for the Tigers and Twins. Pistons Media Day. Chad Henne starting for the Miami Dolphins. And the Wings in Sweden. Yump and Yemeni. The Wings are in Sweden. It's all there for you. Parker and the Man page at yournews.com as we hit the final week of September for 2009. And don't forget, coming up this week, Michigan State stuff. Big football game on Saturday, right? Always is. So check that out, too, early and often.